President Trump being on a planet all by himself. Harry Enton on market fears. Let's run the numbers. Stock market and recession changes, market panic, everything's computer. Let's take a look.
At stock futures, they are pointed up at the moment. Higher as investors are looking to rebound after a brutal day yesterday, a day where President Trump showed that he is refusing to give up on his attacks against the Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell. Uncertainty around the president's trade war, what he's saying about Powell, and the ripple effects from all of it continue.
Part of me feels a little sad that he's just like, the money molestation must be put an end to, you know? The molestation of money must stop, said Jamie Dimon. And Trump said, yes, master. Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
Vanessa, walk us through what's behind this decline.
Well, markets opened rattled this morning because Beijing was essentially putting pressure on their trading partners not to work with the U.S. On essentially not trading with China any longer. And then after that, there was a Truth Social post by President Trump that came out, which sort of rattled markets again. And that's why you're seeing that steep decline. The Dow down 1,100 points now. But you can see the post right there. Where
Wow. Oh, God. Wait.
Dow down 1,100 points.
Hey, when the business, financial analyst correspondent says, wow, while reading the latest data in real time, is that a sign of good things to come? Is that a sign of the best is yet to come? You're going to keep winning. You're going to keep winning. You're going to win so much. You're going to say, please, Mr. President, we've won too much. And I'm going to say, no, you're going to win more. Please, Mr. President, we are tired of winning. I'm going to say, no, you're going to win more.
Yeah, I do want to get your thoughts on where we are in the U.S. trade war with China. It seems the Trump administration is still waiting for a call from President Xi that they suggested he should make like a month ago.
I mean, you know, even setting aside China, so obviously about a week after Liberation Day, actually, I think it was exactly a week, they sort of dialed back the tariffs on the non-China world. And they're like, all right, these are going to be down to 10% for 90 days. We're not even getting those deals.
Please call me. Xi, you used to call me on my cell phone. You up? Xi. Look at this photo of us together. We used to be together. Xi. Remember when I showed you a video of my granddaughter speaking in fluent Mandarin and you said her eyesight is on the future? At that moment, I realized maybe you were talking about a century of Chinese prosperity. I did not understand it. Xi, please call me. Remember the good times we had together. China warns countries not to strike trade deals with the U.S. at its expense. China Ministry of Commerce says appeasing the Trump administration cannot bring peace. China has warned countries seeking exemptions from the United States President Donald Trump tariffs not to strike deals at its expense. Beijing's warnings come as dozens of U.S. trade partners are scrambling to negotiate relief from Trump trade salvos, including steep reciprocal tariffs that have been paused until July. Appeasement cannot bring peace, and compromise will not earn respect, a spokesperson for China Ministry of Commerce said on Monday. Sacrificing others' interests to obtain so-called exemptions for temporary selfish gains is akin to negotiating with a tiger. It ultimately, dude, what is up with the Chinese, man? Every time I hear from a Chinese netizen, it sounds poetic. Every time I hear from the Chinese foreign ministry, it sounds bar for bar like Sun Tzu. Is this normal? Is this how? I don't get it. Is this just how the language works? What is this? It's all idioms across the board. Sacrificing others' interests to obtain so-called exemptions for temporary selfish gains is akin to negotiating with a tiger. It ultimately leads to failure for both parties and harms everyone involved. While China respects countries' efforts to resolve their trade disputes with the U.S., they should also stand on the side of fairness and justice and on the correct side of history. It is particularly important to emphasize that China firmly opposes any party achieving deals at the expense of Chinese interests. Should such a situation arise, China will not accept it and will resolutely take reciprocal countermeasures. This is one of the first instances where I've seen the Chinese government actually take a threatening stance when it comes to trade negotiations or anything really. Like saying that if you were to cut deals with the Trump administration and ruin your trade relationship with China in the process, because some of those demands are going to be to not work with China because America's goal here is to literally decouple all global trade from China as a manufacturing hub, or maybe even potentially the secondary markets that China uses, or secondary manufacturing hubs that China uses. And if that's the case, then they will also retaliate. Now, America retaliating against the world in a belligerent manner is one thing. The ministry issued the statement after Bloomberg News last week reported that the Trump administration intends to push countries seeking relief from its tariffs to reduce their trade with China. U.S. officials are discussing plans to pressure trade partners to stop importing excess goods from China and impose duties on imports from from specific countries with those close ties to the Asian giant. Yeah, this is America utilizing what it thinks it has of its global prominence and influence, which I think to a certain degree, America has eroded a lot of that goodwill and a lot of that domination, especially in the last couple of decades. It thinks it can basically bully everybody to also adding tariffs to China. Like, no more Chinese goods entering your markets. Also, you must no longer have any sovereignty whatsoever, and you must engage in deregulation across the board so that you can allow American goods to flow into your country.
Trade deals are the natural.
By the way, something important to understand here is the difference between China and America in this process. China looked to the interest around the globe. They recognized that technology was moving in the direction of batteries and that there was going to be great need for renewable energy in the future, partially because if China were to become anything beyond just the industrial engine, but like a consumer economy or an economy that, or a country that consumes as much as America does, it would collapse. It would destroy everything. The world would no longer exist. And therefore, they focused on beefing up their renewable energy sector. In the process, they started making electric vehicles, seeing that there was great appetite for electric vehicles in all of the global markets. But they didn't make electric vehicles on what they think, what the domestic Chinese market's demands were, with no consideration to what the international markets were looking for. They made electric vehicles, or rather, their regulatory, their own safety measures and their own cars that they were selling domestically, they also abide by standards and needs that the international markets had, as opposed to in the United States of America, where our top-selling car is an F-150, and it is not something you can sell to the European markets. You just can't do it. That is the big difference here. China makes products that people want to purchase. America wants to use its domineering influence around the globe to forcibly sell our products to you. That's it. Make better products and people will purchase it. And if you want those products to be affordable, okay, if you want the cost of said products to be competitive with the other country's domestic manufacturing, then subsidize the out of it, which we already do. But don't let those subsidies go back to the pockets of CEOs, but instead make sure that those subsidies go to your workers. This F-150 canard again, we make small cars too. I know, we make other types of cars as well. I know, I mean, you have the Ford Fiesta, for example.
The S&P has dropped the most under Trump for any president at this point in their presidency since the S&P 500 was in fact created back in 1957. You do not want to be on, the American people don't want to be on, in terms of the drop in the S&P 500 approaching 15% already in his presidency. No bueno.
Yeah, this is base too. Yeah, money. Trump won on making video game titties big. He ran on Oblivion Remaster. Guess what? Shadow dropped Oblivion Remaster. Based. Who cares about anything else? Let it burn. It builds character. I'll grind way harder. Take all of it away. I'll grind harder, chat. Well.
So all of this and the ripple effects from the trade war have a lot of people talking, of course, about a recession coming. Some even saying that we're already in a recession. Where are the numbers on that?
Yeah, okay. So, of course, this is the whole question, right? Is what happens on the New York Stock Exchange, what happens in the NASDAQ, what happens in the S&P 500, stay there? Or does it then cascade across the economy? And at this particular point, there's a decent chance that it will cascade across the economy. Chance of a recession. You see, I have 4 different little metrics we can look at. JP Morgan, 60%. Polymarket, 57%. Reuters, 45%. Goldman Sachs, 45%. That's a bunch of numbers on your screen, but they're all basically telling the same exact story. That is, on either side of 50%, there's basically a 50-50 chance of a recession at this point. And that is way up from where we were at the beginning of the Trump presidency, when the numbers simply put weren't anywhere near this. The stock market is a reflection of the economic state we're in. The chance of a recession is
Why the f is there a poly market ticker on this, dude? What is going on at this point? How has this become a part of like normal political discourse? Like, that's on CNN, dude. We are such a stupid country. I'm sorry, dude. Holy f. I know I'm supposed to be saying it's based, but like every day I find out something new.
Another reflection of the state of the economy that we are in. The bottom line is that Trump's tariff wars have taken what was a pretty gosh darn good economy and turned into a very uncertain economy, one in which the stock market has fallen and one in which the chance of a recession has gone up considerably, Kate Baldwin.
If there is a recession, how much blame is Donald Trump likely to face?
Okay, so this is the whole thing. Is it, am I going to blame the last guy and I'm trying to fix the economy? Or is it we're going to blame this guy, Donald Trump, and the buck actually stops there? This is what the American folks say. If Donald Trump believes that he can somehow escape blame if there is, in fact, a recession, I'm here for a reality check. He will simply put not be able to do so. Blame Trump if there's a recession in the next 12 months. Look at this. A lot or quite a bit. That's the majority winner right there at 52%. A little or not at all, perhaps a little bit high, some might say, at 32%. But still here, the clear majority of Americans say that if, in fact, there is a recession in the next 12 months, which at this point looks about 50-50, the majority of the American public says that the buck will stop at the White House, stop at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, and Donald Trump will not, in fact, be able to escape.
Yeah, because it's entirely triggered by Donald Trump's ridiculous tariffs regime that he is implementing. It's not like this was, you know, I don't know, the previous administration's actions, unless the argument is that like Joe Biden did mind control or something. Joe Biden did mind control to Donald Trump to make him do the tariff stuff. Yeah, never forget the HasanAbi 30% rule.
Blame if there is, in fact, a recession.
Harry Anton, thank you very much.
Thank you.
John Berman.
All right, with us now is Canadian businessman, CNBC contributor Kevin O'Leary. He's also the chairman of O'Leary Ventures. Kevin, great to see you this morning. You just saw that stat right there, that more than half of Americans would blame Trump if there is a recession. I know you're sitting in Canada this morning. Would you blame Trump if there were a recession?
Well, let me just say that we've been talking about recession now for 4 years in a row, you may recall. Forecasters of recessions have been wrong for 4 years straight. So probabilities of 32 to 55%, that's interesting, but we are not in a recession right now. It really depends on how long these tariff wars go on for. I mean, it's widely assumed right now that the euro.
Wait, last week this bald piece of shit was talking about how we need to do 10,000% tariffs on China. He said, and I quote, "We must crush the Chinese workers' heads against the wall." He said we need to squeeze Chinese workers' heads against the wall. That's what he said. How come now he's like, oh, well, you know, the tariffs regime is, you know, creating an environment of instability. So what happened? He said Donald Trump needs to absolutely eviscerate China, decouple China entirely from global trade. Did he just realize that his portfolio relies heavily on Chinese manufacturing?
European bloc, the British, Swiss, Canadian, and Mexican deals will get resolved in relatively short order. The giant question mark, and certainly this is on Powell's mind when he refuses to drop rates, is how long will the China situation last? Because that one looks far more complicated. It's not just trade and tariffs. It's
Wait, what?
IP theft and access to markets and WTO issues. There's a lot on the table at China. And so I would argue right now that people that count out the American economy are constantly wrong all the time. It's the largest.
Kevin, you said it was simple last week. Kev, what are you saying? This is a totally different message than last week, big dog. Wait, what? I'm so shocked. He said it wasn't complicated last week. Why is he saying it's complicated this week? He said it's not complicated. China will back down with pressure. We have a very important market to enter here, and that the art of the deal is going to work all the way. And he verbatim said, If I do say so myself, we should make the tariffs 400%. Huh.
The American economy generates 8 to 10% returns over the long run. And now you're getting to buy at a 17, 18 PE versus 23 just 4 months ago. It's a value deal.
I would say yes, there are corrections all the time. This is a little different, right? I mean, the Dow, the worst April since the Great Depression, the S&P, the same thing. There's a lot of focus on the stock market. The Wall Street Journal, which put out that headline today that got a lot of information, also notes it's not just stocks, right? The Journal writes, counterweights that usually strengthen when stocks fall, such as government bonds and the U.S. dollar, also under pressure. Yields on 10-year U.S. Treasuries, a key benchmark, have increased 0.16% in April. The ICE U.S. dollar index slips more than 1% Monday to its lowest level in 3 years. With other defensive plays falling short, investors have piled into one of the oldest hedges there is, gold. An all-time high for gold. So, look, the markets in general, not just stocks, are saying we're not so sure about the U.S. right now.
No, you're right. There's a lot of volatility, and that's what you get when you take these kinds of actions. No administration has ever taken on 60 trade negotiations simultaneously, let alone China on top of that. The job owning with the Fed that Trump is doing.
Yeah, maybe it's not a good idea to do that for literally no reason. Yeah, no one has been dumb enough to just break global trade with no discernible mechanism to rebuild manufacturing, mind you, which makes it even funnier. Like, it's awesome. It's so funny. I'm sorry. It's just like these things are completely outside of our control. So what do you do but laugh? I hope the fear of God was put in this asshole's heart over the past couple of weeks. He's been running around talking about how brave, bold, and beautiful Trump is for these decisions. And now, seemingly, his attitude has shifted.
America is the #1 economy on earth with all the cards. We will not have that forever. It's time to squeeze Chinese heads into the wall now.
Well,
I'm
hold
not
on
talking
a
about
second,
tariffs
Kevin.
on
Well,
60
I hear you, but hold on. Can't survive
400% tomorrow morning, cheese on an airplane to Washington to cut a deal.
Stuff is, you know, we've seen this movie before, and the volatility index is very high, the VIX. But that's because of the nature of this administration. And I've always said this about Trump. You know, I'm not advocating for Trump. I advocate for policy. I don't shill for politicians. I would like to see the China issue resolved once and for all. After 20 years, and as an individual who invests, and I want to do business in China, I've invested there. And I've said this multiple.
Wow, he's no longer advocating for Trump, guys. Wait, he said he wanted to put money on a bet. If Donald Trump increased tariffs to 400%, Xi would be on a jet tomorrow. So strange. Look at the tonal shift. Well, you know, time passes, opinions turn, opinions change. You start recognizing the writing on the wall. Who knows?
I'm an example of someone who's really been screwed by the Chinese in IP theft. And I've kind of done with it. So I'm very happy that some administration, this one particularly, is taking them on to resolve this problem once and for all. The one thing I would say that I've noticed as I do business all around the world, in the Middle East and in Europe, 50% of the people in the world have Trump derangement syndrome. And they still have a really hard time understanding why he's back in the White House. And I say to them, listen, it doesn't matter. He's in the White House. We have to deal with the policy, not Trump, the policy. Let's forget about the fact that he's in the White House. There's nothing you can do about it. He was elected with a majority. Let's get over the derangement syndrome. Let's focus on the policy and get stuff done. Because I've got to tell you, there's a lot of people that go out of their minds just the fact that he's back in there. And I realize it. It is what it is, but I've got to deal with it too. I mean, I just have to deal with policy. And I think you're right. If he gets this policy right and circles the wagons with
It's just crazy because you definitely do advocate for Trump. So why are you saying you don't advocate for Trump now? Oh, why are the markets behaving the way that they're behaving? Why is there so much volatility? Why is the VIX the hottest ticker on the New York Stock Exchange? What's the question there? Why is all this happening? Oh, it's just Trump derangement syndrome. No, asshole. It's because they look at how deranged Trump is and go, well, this doesn't instill a lot of confidence in me. Can you explain IP theft in China? Yeah, IP theft is cope that capital owners claim is a horribly uncompetitive business practice implemented by China that they absolutely agreed to. Initially, they did not think that China would be able to become a competitive manufacturing hub that could have, like, that it would have any sort of foothold or even become a leader in key sectors. So I don't even know what IP he's talking about, because I don't know what kind of companies he has like done manufacturing in China for. I find it really funny. Maybe it's like some Shark Tank. Can you imagine? China, they stole the ShamWow. They stole this small business that I bought on Shark Tank that is a different version of Poppers. Yeah, Scrub Daddy. As far as IP theft goes, it's a part of the deal. You want manufacturing China, China gets access to your technology. So everybody that's now complaining about that, Kevin O'Leary included, knew that that was the deal and still went along with it because they wanted cheap manufacturing. Look, this is a great example. This is a great example. Look, where is it? My friend came home from China with a phone that operated like they just cut and paste iOS into the phone and made a few changes, so there's some truth to the IP theft. Okay. Do you know Tim Cook's opinion on manufacturing in China? Tim Cook, who famously said, even if American manufacturing was competitive rate-wise to Chinese manufacturing, as in Chinese wages improved to such a degree that they were literally the same, I would still manufacture my equipment in China because of the precision manufacturing necessary and the technical skills necessary to be able to make a fucking iPhone would require multiple decades for the American labor force to become a competitive labor force when it comes to precise manufacturing. China has a far superior manufacturing infrastructure. China has a far more educated labor force. So do you think Tim Pool is complaining about the IP theft? Do you think Tim Pool doesn't know that China engages in IP theft when he says stuff like that? Did I say Tim Pool? I'm sorry.
And let me at least give you my opinion. The popular conception is that companies come to China because of low labor cost. I'm not sure what part of China they go to, but the truth is China stopped being the low labor cost country many years ago. The reason is because of the skill, the quantity of skill in one location and the type of skill it is. Like the products we do require really advanced tooling, and the precision that you have to have in tooling and working with the materials that we do are state of the art. And the tooling skill is very deep here. You know, in the US you could have a meeting of tooling engineers and I'm not sure we could fill the room. In China you could fill multiple football fields. It's that vocational expertise is very deep. Very, very deep here.
Strange. He didn't mention the IP theft that you as a consumer are worried about, by the way. You as a consumer are trying to outflank Tim Apple over here. And it's really interesting because as a consumer, you know what IP theft looks like to you? Generic drugs versus brand drugs. That's all this is for you. From the consumer standpoint, when you say China's stealing our IP, brother, what you actually mean is, I want to pay more. Here's a very easy solution to the Chinese IP theft argument, which the American government knows, as a matter of fact. It's called don't manufacture there. Make it illegal to manufacture there.
A big part of why there was such a big market sell-off yesterday is because the president woke up and sent off a social media post that was really, really scathing against the Federal Reserve Chair, who is supposed to be independent.
Part of me wanted to see how much harder he could molest the money. Like, I really thought that he had it in him. I wanted to see it. Don't act like you didn't either. This isn't to like belittle the economic downsides, obviously. It's not like he's done yet, but I'm saying he has greatly diminished his molestation capabilities. He straight up went from total molestation to like maybe a little bit of light diddling of the money. Virtually over the course of like a week. Not to say that he's not like going to continue. He will. I just wanted to see how far he could take it.
Independent institution, but it seems like with the economic frustration that is forecast at this point, that the president is sort of setting the groundwork to blame the Fed, you know, as people are frustrated if consumer prices go up. And we've seen that in the past as well, him saying, well, look, can you bring interest? This would be a good time to bring interest rates down. Well, we also know that that's a factor in rising inflation as well. So that interest rates are a tool to keep inflation down as well. So this is part of the playbook of the president when facing criticism on a specific issue, including something as crucial to his electoral win, as you noted, like the economy, finding someone to blame.
Yeah.
It seems like we know who that person is going to be
Right,
here.
except that Jerome Powell wasn't elected.
Sure.
He was appointed, by the way, by Donald Trump in the first term. And President Trump now says, well, I think it was really immigration that got me elected. If you look at every exit poll, it was the economy, that drove it. And look where he is right now, Leanne. This is a question from a CNBC poll that came out a couple of days ago. On the economy, his disapproval is 55%. He's pretty underwater there. Inflation, very underwater, 60% disapproval. And then federal government spending is a little bit more even, but he still has a majority of people not happy. I will say that he's above water on the issue of immigration, which is probably why he continues to talk about that, which is exactly the point you were making.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is, I mean, the fact that he's so...
The irony is that if the Democrats keep hitting him on immigration, his immigration numbers are getting lower and lower too. There it is. Oh my God. Right on. Right as I said this. Look, thank you, chatter. New Reuters poll finds Trump is no longer in positive territory, even on immigration. Wow! Dude, I'm going to be honest. I'm not a particularly smart guy. I'm not. You don't have to be. You don't have to be a fucking brilliant guy to be able to predict the future. I'm saying super basic shit. If Democrats make a big fuss over the depravity of the Trump administration's cruel and unusual white nativist immigration agenda, then the media will cover it more. And when the media will cover it more, people will be more aware of what's going on. And they'll go, oh my God. Yeah, I thought he was like deporting rapists. Why is he deporting random gay hairstylist whose name is Andre because he had a mom and dad tattoo? People are stupid. They're malleable. They are easy to persuade. They are easy to dupe. And it turns out when the Democrats actually launch even the beginning phases of a counter messaging campaign on the issue of immigration, oh my God, lo and behold, the polls change. How could this have happened? You're maybe not a STEM genius, but your political instincts are on point. It's not even political instincts. I'm telling you right now, it is super basic. It's super basic. It's just having a decent understanding of history and having a decent understanding of what, like, you know, the common American voter looks like and thinks like. I don't even think it's my poli-sci degree that's working here. There are plenty of people who have not only gotten an undergrad like myself, but beyond that have gotten masters. As a matter of fact, they've maybe studied a little too much. And that's precisely why I don't understand it. My point is, all of this stuff happens because, like, I think in dialectical ways. It is dialectical thinking. I understand that if there's always a push and pull, for example, if there's only push in one direction when it comes to immigration and no pull whatsoever, then yeah, of course people are going to reflect this broader cultural shift. They're going to look at this and go, okay, well, I guess, yeah, immigrants are rapists, bloodthirsty murderers and parasitic or whatever because no one else is saying the opposite on the other side. Anyway, my point is you can be a common sense thinker and be able to comprehend what has happened thus far and potentially talk about what will happen in the future. Okay, they failed in this live stream, it seems. This is why people like Senator Markey need me on their side. If I knew that Ed Markey was going to the detention facility, I would have gone with him and I would have live streamed the whole thing. For all the staffers that are in this chat, and I know a lot of you motherfuckers are in here right now, let your senators know I will go with them. If anyone wants to go to Louisiana, I will fly out on my own, obviously. I will stream your senator. I will talk to your senator. I will do it all. I tweeted about this earlier today. I will give all full-blown support. I am not a man who is capable of, creating super PACs and funding people's campaigns like that. But I do have one thing. I have a community of like-minded thinkers who are very progressive, who will go out and will door knock, who will go out and will show support to Democratic Party politicians. I also have a decent understanding of what makes the news. So I will use that to your advantage.